Because apparently when duct tape meets electricity, someone always ends up calling 911. 1. The lawn chair jetpack. Somewhere in California, a man looked at his yard, his tools, and a pile of fireworks and thought, yeah, I can fly. He duct-taped Roman candles to a metal lawn chair, strapped himself in, and lit the fuses like he was auditioning for Mythbusters. Darwin edition. The result? A brief, majestic flight, straight into a power line. The fireworks went off, the lawn chair melted, and the neighbors called 911 to report a man-shaped meteor. When asked why he did it, he said, "I wanted to prove gravity wrong." Gravity was not impressed. 2. The homemade jacuzzi of doom. A man in Nebraska decided his backyard needed luxury, but on a budget. So he built a DIY hot tub using a plastic kiddie pool, an extension cord, and a space heater. Within minutes, the water reached lava levels, the plastic began to melt, and his homemade spa turned into a bubbling cauldron of regret. He escaped with minor burns, a fried electrical system, and a newfound respect for electricity. Firefighters described the scene as a cross between a science fair and a funeral. 3. The chainsaw massage chair. In one of history's boldest examples of "don't try this at home," a man in Tennessee tried to automate his back massager using a chainsaw motor. He attached the motor to an old recliner, plugged it in, and sat down. Within seconds, the chair began vibrating like a possessed washing machine, then exploded. His wife called 911 after the recliner attempted to launch itself through the wall. When paramedics arrived, the man was fine, just dazed, and still insisted it was almost working, because nothing says relaxation like industrial-grade whiplash. 4. The DIY tattoo gun. That bit back one teenager in Ohio thought paying for tattoos was a scam, so he decided to make his own tattoo gun out of a toothbrush, a sewing needle, and a phone charger. He plugged it in, fired it up, and immediately electrocuted himself mid-YOLO design. The paramedics arrived to find him with half a word tattooed on his leg. It just said, "Yo," which, to be fair, is exactly what he screamed when the current hit. Sometimes life really does edit your bad decisions for you. 5. The exploding beer fridge. A guy in Canada built what he called the manliest beer fridge ever, a full-size refrigerator modified with LED lights, a Bluetooth speaker, and a CO2 tank for pressure cooling. He forgot one thing: ventilation. When he opened it to grab a drink, the gas buildup ignited from a spark in the wiring. The explosion blew the door off, showered him in beer foam, and destroyed half his garage. His wife said it was the most expensive six-pack in history. The firefighters agreed, and laughed the entire time. 6. The homemade flamethrower barbecue. Every barbecue master dreams of extra power, but one Texas man took it too far. He welded a propane tank to his grill and added a leaf blower for turbo mode. The first ignition launched a fireball that lit his fence, his eyebrows, and half his lawn on fire. When he called 911, the operator asked if anyone was hurt. He replied, "Just my pride in the brisket." The firefighters later said the only thing cooked to perfection was the stupidity. 7. The DIY pool filter from hell. In Florida, of course it's Florida, a homeowner decided to save money by building his own pool filter. He combined a leaf blower, PVC pipes, and a garden hose. The system worked for about 6 glorious seconds before turning into a geyser that blasted chlorinated water through his living room window. He called 911 when the pressure caused the hose to snap and whip around like a possessed anaconda. The responding officer said it looked like the pool was fighting back, which, frankly, it was. 8. The homemade hoverboard. That hovered. Once, a man in Arizona decided he could beat the system and make his own hoverboard using leaf blowers, plywood, and a little bit of science. He strapped 4 blowers to a flatboard, stood on it, and shouted, "This is it, baby, we're flying!" The good news: it lifted. The bad news: straight into his garage wall. The board shattered, the blowers caught fire, and his security camera caught everything, including the moment he yelled, "It worked!" while on fire. He later told reporters, technically it did hover. And technically, so do ashes. 9. The gasoline lawn mower. Tune-up: some people fix engines with logic. Others fix them with optimism and bad ideas. A man in Oklahoma poured gasoline directly into his lawnmower's carburetor to give it a jump start. The result was a fireball so bright it triggered 3 porch lights on the street. The fire department arrived to find him standing in his driveway with singed eyebrows and holding a garden hose that wasn't connected to anything. His only comment, "Guess she didn't like premium." No, sir. She liked oxygen, and you gave her plenty. 10. The DIY haircut that turned into surgery. A man in New Jersey tried to give himself a zero-fade haircut using a mirror, kitchen scissors, and an electric trimmer hooked to a car battery. Because why not bring automotive engineering into your bathroom? He accidentally dropped the live wires into the sink, shocked himself, and fell backward into the shower curtain, bringing down the entire rod. When paramedics arrived, he was half-conscious and looked like he'd lost a fight with a weed whacker. The good news, his fade was still kind of tight. The bad news, it came with a concussion. 11. The cement mixer jacuzzi. A Florida couple, where else, decided to make a hot tub on a budget by repurposing an old cement mixer. They filled it with water, plugged it into an extension cord, and hopped in with a bottle of wine. The motor short-circuited instantly, launching a geyser of boiling mud water. They called 911 while still sitting in it, screaming that the bubbles won't stop. Firefighters had to cut the power to the entire block. When interviewed later, the man defended himself. "It's just like a spa, but industrial." Industrial was right. OSHA would have fainted. 12. The homemade elevator of doom. A retired engineer in Pennsylvania decided stairs were for suckers and built his own one-person elevator using a winch, a few ropes, and what he called trust in the process. He got halfway up before a pulley snapped and dropped him straight into his trash cans. When EMTs arrived, he was mostly fine, but furious that his safety redundancy system hadn't kicked in. When asked what that was, he pointed to a single roll of duct tape on the floor. The firefighters later called it the most literal example of blind faith in mechanics we've ever seen. 13. The backyard rocket man. Meet the man who thought NASA was just overcomplicating it. In rural Nevada, a self-proclaimed garage astronaut decided to build his own rocket using PVC pipes, fireworks, and an old propane tank. His goal? To prove space isn't real. The plan was simple: launch himself 300 feet into the air to see the curvature. The rocket actually did launch, about 20 feet, before the engine exploded, sending him tumbling across his lawn like a human meteor. When police arrived, his first question was, "Did I make it to space?" "No, sir, you made it to the bushes." His wife later told reporters, "I told him to at least wear a helmet." He replied, "Helmets are for people who doubt themselves," which, ironically, is now printed on the cast around his leg. The local fire chief summed it up best. He didn't reach orbit, but he definitely saw stars. 14. The solar-powered death oven. Somewhere in Arizona, a man decided to outsmart his electric bill by building a homemade solar oven. He used aluminum foil, a satellite dish, and way too much optimism. The device actually worked. So well, it reached over 500 degrees. The problem? He forgot it was pointed directly at his house. Within minutes, the reflection burned a hole straight through his vinyl siding. By the time he noticed the smoke, his backyard looked like the surface of Mercury. When firefighters arrived, he tried to explain his breakthrough in renewable stupidity. His defense: "Technically, I cooked something." "Yes, your wall." Neighbors said the light beam was so bright it looked like a UFO landing. When asked if he'd rebuild it, he said, "Of course, next time I'll use stronger foil." That's not a fix, that's a sequel. 15. The homemade generator meltdown. When a storm knocked out power in rural Kentucky, one man refused to wait for the grid to come back. He grabbed an old lawnmower engine, a car alternator, and a web tutorial from 2007. How hard could it be, he thought. He built his generator inside his kitchen. Within minutes of starting it, the carbon monoxide levels spiked so high his parrot passed out first. The man stumbled outside, dizzy, and called 911 saying, "My house smells like a barbecue and I didn't invite anyone." Firefighters evacuated the home and found what they described as a bomb made of redneck ambition. When asked why he built it inside, he said, "It was raining." Yeah, and now it's raining irony. The fire chief's report simply read, "Homemade generator. Outcome: almost met Jesus." 16. The pressure cooker. Paint sprayer. Some people paint with brushes, some use rollers. And then there's the man in Michigan who decided to invent the future of painting. by turning a pressure cooker into a high-speed paint sprayer. He filled it with blue paint, sealed it tight, and attached an air compressor. It worked for 2 glorious seconds before the lid launched across the garage like a missile, painting everything, including his car, electric blue. His wife called 911 because she thought he'd blown himself up. He was fine, just very, very blue. When firefighters arrived, he was pacing around yelling, "At least it's even coverage." The garage looked like Picasso's fever dream. The police officer on scene said he didn't need medical attention, but he did need new life choices. The man later told reporters, "DIY stands for don't involve y'all." Honestly, hard to argue. 17. The Great Roof Pool Collapse. A family in New Jersey wanted a rooftop pool but didn't want to pay for professional installation. So they bought a $200 inflatable pool, dragged it onto the flat roof of their 2-story house, and filled it with thousands of gallons of water using a garden hose. For a few hours, it worked beautifully, a summer miracle, until physics clocked in for the day shift. The roof began to sag, groan, and then completely collapse, dumping an entire pool and 3 screaming people into their living room. The 911 call began with, "We're in the pool," but also not. Firefighters arrived to find the family drenched but miraculously unharmed, sitting in what used to be their ceiling. When asked why they thought the roof would hold, the father said, "It was fine until it wasn't." The insurance company reportedly laughed for a full minute before denying the claim. 18. The Backyard Wind Turbine Massacre. In rural Kansas, a man decided he was tired of paying for electricity. So he built his own wind turbine using a car axle, 3 ceiling fan blades, and a whole lot of misplaced confidence. He mounted it on a 20-foot pole made from 2x4s nailed together like Jenga on life support. On the first windy day, it started spinning beautifully, until the wood snapped. The entire contraption came down like a guillotine, slicing through his patio table and embedding 1 blade in his grill. The man called 911 saying, "The wind's attacking me." Firefighters found him holding an umbrella, trying to fight the spinning wreckage like a low-budget superhero. When the local paper asked what went wrong, he said, "The wind was just too powerful for my design." Translation: I built a helicopter in my backyard, and gravity won. 19. The DIY submarine that couldn't. A retired mechanic in Wisconsin spent 2 years building what he called America's first civilian submarine in his shed. It was made from steel barrels, duct tape, and hope. He launched it in a local lake, invited his friends to watch, and proudly shouted, "Dive, dive," as it immediately sank like a bowling ball in pudding. Rescuers found him clinging to a log, yelling that he'd just miscalculated the buoyancy. Yeah, you don't say. His wife later told the press, "He's always been a hands-on learner," which is a polite way of saying he learns things when they explode. The Coast Guard inspected the wreckage and declared it, technically, a barrel with dreams. The man, undeterred, said he'd build another one using more barrels, because if there's one thing dumber than failure, it's a sequel. 20. The Electric Fence Jacuzzi. 2 roommates in Georgia wanted to throw the craziest party ever, and they delivered, mostly because it ended in multiple 911 calls. They had a kiddie pool, a stereo, and an electric fence meant for livestock. Their genius idea wrapped the fence wire around the pool's rim for mood lighting. When they turned it on, the pool became a live electric trap. One guy jumped in with a beer, instantly shot back out like a dolphin escaping hell, and screamed, "The water's biting me!" They shut it off and called 911, explaining they were testing a concept. The paramedics said it was a miracle no one died. The cops said it was a miracle anyone survived Georgia. The roommates told reporters, "We were just trying to combine relaxation and excitement. Mission accomplished." 21. The homemade fireworks show that rewrote the sky. Every 4th of July, there's always one person who thinks, "I can do this better than professionals." In Pennsylvania, that person was a man who converted his entire garage into a DIY fireworks factory. He mixed gunpowder in plastic buckets, glued tubes together with hot glue, and built a launch control center out of an old computer keyboard. When he hit enter, the entire garage ignited, launching fireworks horizontally through the neighborhood. One went through a neighbor's open window and set off their ceiling fan, which began flinging sparks in every direction. When police arrived, he was standing in the yard, covered in soot, holding a Roman candle like a sword, yelling, "It's all part of the show!" Miraculously, no one was hurt. No, except his pride in his garage door, which was last seen orbiting somewhere over New Jersey. 22. The eco-friendly house fire. A man in Oregon wanted to prove that modern homes were too dependent on chemicals and technology. So he built his own eco-friendly cabin using only natural materials: logs, straw, clay, and a roof made entirely from dried pine needles. The problem? He also wanted to heat it with a wood stove. The first night he lit it, the entire roof ignited like a box of fireworks. The cabin burned down in under 5 minutes, and the local fire department arrived to find him standing outside in a robe saying, "At least it was sustainable." One firefighter deadpanned, "Yeah, it sustained a fire real good." The man later gave an interview claiming the blaze proved his point about impermanence. The only thing permanent was the blackened circle in his eco-yard that looked like nature's middle finger. 23. The homemade zipline to the ER. A family in Colorado decided to spice up their backyard with a DIY zipline. The dad anchored one end to a tree and the other to the roof of the shed. The problem? He used extension cords instead of steel cable. His teenage son volunteered as the first test pilot, zipped halfway, and the cord snapped, launching him into the neighbor's inflatable pool. It was the most successful landing of the entire project. Then Dad decided to fix it with rope. He tried again himself, hit the shed wall head first, and called 911 from inside a lawn chair, dazed but proud. The paramedics said it looked like a Disney ride designed by concussions. When the news interviewed him, he said, "It would have worked if we'd had a longer yard." The internet agreed. The only thing shorter than his yard was his foresight. 24. The Backyard Airplane Project. There are dreamers, and then there's Gary from Montana. Gary believed he could build his own airplane, from a lawnmower engine, aluminum siding, and God's guidance. His plan: take off from his driveway, circle the house, and land triumphantly on the front lawn. He built a plywood cockpit with a car seat, attached 2 uneven wings, and installed a custom propeller made from ceiling fan blades. On launch day, neighbors gathered, mostly to film the disaster. Gary gunned the engine, lurched forward, and achieved a stunning 5 feet of altitude before the left wing snapped off like a breadstick. The plane spun, clipped the mailbox, and skidded into his wife's rose garden. His first words when EMTs arrived: "I think it needs more lift." His wife's first words: "It needs a divorce." Gary survived with a broken wrist and a permanent nickname: Flightless Gary. 25. The DIY pool heater. That boiled the neighborhood. Somewhere in Nevada, a man decided to heat his pool using an old water heater, copper pipes, and pure chaos. He connected the heater directly to his home's natural gas line, ran pipes through the pool, and sealed it all with duct tape for insulation. The contraption actually worked for about 10 minutes. Then the pressure built up. The duct tape gave way, and a geyser of scalding water erupted into the air like Yellowstone's angry cousin. The blast shattered 2 windows and briefly set his neighbor's hedge on fire. Firefighters later said, "It looked like the pool tried to reach orbit." The man told reporters, "At least it heated up fast." True, so fast it turned his pool into a giant hot espresso. The city fined him $4,000, but honestly, the footage should have earned him an Oscar for Best Practical Effects. 26. The homemade robot. That started a riot. In Michigan, a robotics hobbyist decided to revolutionize home security with his own AI-powered guard robot. The catch? He didn't know coding, so he built it using a Roomba, a taser, and an Alexa speaker. The result? A device that roamed his driveway shouting random phrases like "intruder alert" and occasionally zapping itself. But one night, the taser short-circuited and set off the fire alarm. His neighbors, thinking it was an active shooter robot, because of course it sounded like one, called 911. 5 police cars arrived to find a smoldering Roomba with a kitchen knife taped to it, spinning in circles and screaming, "Weather report on 100% panic." When questioned, the man said, "I think the AI gained consciousness." The officer replied, "No, it lost patience." The robot was confiscated, but honestly, it deserved a medal for making every sci-fi movie look reasonable. 27. The homemade jet ski. That couldn't swim, a man in Louisiana wanted to combine his 2 passions, motorcycles and water. So he built what he proudly called the Hydro Harley. He took an old dirt bike, attached it to 2 barrels for buoyancy, and sealed the engine with a garbage bag. His plan: ride it across the bayou while blasting AC/DC. He got 10 feet before the barrels flipped. The garbage bag filled with water, and the bike sank like a mafia confession. He clung to a barrel and called 911, shouting, "My invention betrayed me." When the sheriff's boat arrived, they had to suppress laughter as he floated past, still wearing his helmet. The local paper titled the story, "Bayou Man Attempts to Outrun Science." The man later announced plans for a sequel called Hydro Harley 2, this time with extra duct tape and faith. We can't wait for the documentary. 28. The Volcano Experiment, aka the grand finale of dumb. And now, the magnum opus of human hubris. A man in Utah wanted to create a backyard volcano for his kid's science project, but realistic, not safe. He mixed concrete, magnesium shavings, and gasoline inside a metal barrel. His plan: a small, controllable eruption. What he got instead: Mount St. Idiot. The moment he lit the fuse, the entire barrel exploded, launching chunks of flaming concrete into neighboring yards. One piece landed in a kiddie pool 3 houses away. The shockwave shattered his own windows, melted his sprinkler system, and created a small crater that locals nicknamed Mini Pompeii. When firefighters arrived, they found him standing in his yard, eyebrows gone, whispering. It worked. His wife simply asked, "What did you expect?" His answer: "Honestly, not this much success." The fire chief later said it was the single dumbest incident he'd seen in 30 years. And that's including the man who tried to grill indoors with jet fuel. The crater remains today as a charred monument to one man's determination to turn curiosity into chaos. Humans are amazing. We split the atom, we landed on the moon, and somehow, we still can't stop setting our garages on fire. Which of these DIY disasters deserves the gold medal in stupidity? Drop your pick in the comments. And remember, if your project starts with the words, "How hard can it be?" the answer is always 911.